Buttons are pressed, and now people can hear us.
Excellent.
Now people can see me. All right, you good?
Sir, let's do it.
I'm actually going to maybe turn this down a little because you're very loud. There we go.
Let's say I am getting good wind and I'm traveling nicely across the ocean. No errant waves.
Are you Akbar right now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, hello there, everyone, and welcome to Tapcaf Transmissions, episode 4, where we're going to be talking about the Krytos Trap. I am the host for this week, Ori, and joining me, as always, is Eckhart's Justin Ladder.
Oh, I didn't know that was a middle name, but thanks for having me on your channel this time. It's very cozy. It's very...
Wow. That's rude.
Hi. No, cozy as in... I didn't mean small cozy. I meant
Hey,
there's
I didn't
cushions
say
and...
that. I didn't say that.
Oh, God.
What
What
do
have
you...
I done?
Yeah. Well, I double as the guy from Star Wars Explained, of course. So, yeah, so we are back with the third book in Rogue Squadron, or in X-WING, which is our fourth
Krytos
episode
Trap?
overall. We've talked about uh, the Truce of Bakura so far, Rogue
Mm-hmm.
Squadron, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Wedge's Gamble,
Which
Wedge's
is...
Surprise Mechanics, and now Krytos Trap. So, uh, first off, how have the last 2 weeks been for you? Any exciting feelings while
Uh,
reading this
I went to
book?
Toronto. I started reading the book about 3 days ago. It was a pretty hard task as a Corellian. I don't care for odds generally, and also as a member of Rogue Squadron, we typically accomplish the impossible. But even this was pretty difficult. This is a pretty wordy book, but without like happening.
Yeah, it's not a lot of substance. I read it the night after the last episode. I'd basically stayed up till 8 a.m., read the whole thing, and have
Oh,
been going back over it a couple times since, because we did have a bunch of mod release stuff going on. So it's been
oh
a busy
yes.
couple weeks, but we're good here. I think we're gonna be. There's three main plot lines to the book.
Hmm.
So basically, the trial of Tycho, Corin getting out of Lusankia, and
Hmm.
also Curtin Lore's fun terrorist times.
I like
Uh,
that.
and I think Lore's is probably the one that ties in a bit less with the other stuff. And we did spend the last few episodes saying that we'll probably talk more about the villains of the series a bit more with Kratos Trap and
Mhm.
Back to War. So do you want to, I guess, open it up with talking a bit about what Lore's up to and maybe some impressions
Yeah.
on Isard and Glarivoru?
I mean, so keep in mind, I've only read the book in the last week one time, not 6 times like you, but I will try my best. Um, so sorry, I don't know why I said that, but
Just coming out with all
so
the shots today. I don't know what's up here.
wrong with me. Um, so basically, at the end of the last book, Curtin Lore, well, all of the Empire is basically leaving a poisoned Coruscant to the New Republic. It's poisoned with this really nasty disease called the Krytos virus. They've totally given up Imperial Center. It's no longer under Imperial control in any sort of meaningful way. Lore believes that Isard in the Lusankia, he thinks the Lusankia is just her secret prison. He thinks she's off planet some world or somewhere, and he's basically been given the job of causing as much destruction and hardship to the New Republic as he possibly can. And of course, his headquarters is not, hidden in the depths of Imperial Center. It's at the top of a really tall skyscraper, which
Where
I
he
don't
can
know.
conveniently see a lot of what he needs to going on.
Yeah.
The book opens up with the kind of like a public funeral for Corin, as well
Mhm.
as a who everyone believes to have died after he flew into a building and
Right.
disappeared. They assume disintegrated, I guess, after the end of the liberation of Coruscant. So they're having like a joint celebration of liberating Coruscant and trying to turn Corin's death into a symbol. So all the New Republic leadership is at this ceremony. Rogue Squadron's there, and uh, Curtain Lore turns out to be watching the whole thing happen and deciding not to bomb it until after people leave, which very effective.
I don't really get that. Did you? I still don't quite understand what his reasoning there is. I mean, I guess
It's more
wanting to scare the populace is good, but like you could have literally eliminated like.
if you want to try to get an in-universe rationale for it, I guess it like you could say turning them into martyrs, but at the same time,
Yeah.
if you're destroying the entire leadership as well as Rogue Squadron, then great. But I think the real reason is that all these characters were still alive in all the books that were written before that take place long after, which is kind of why like very little can happen in
Totally.
Lore's arc because it's mostly just stuff that we know doesn't succeed or can't succeed. And then it especially gets worse with when Filarivoru, who is supposed to be working on the New Republic side, he helped them liberate the planet. He's kind of supposed to keep the underworld in check. Accidentally finds Lore and starts telling them who he can and can't hit.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the reason why like they have Isard as the main villain and not Zinj at this point, because we know Zinj is killed in Courtship of Princess Leia. So like if they had been pursuing him as the main enemy this entire time, I guess we would have known that it was all for naught, and that he basically would have been blown up by Iran.
Yeah, so the idea with terrorism is that you do want to go after civilian or non like targets that would seemingly be random. So there's that, but there's also if you have the chance to take out that much political leadership as well, then that's usually something they go for. But
Yeah, totally.
So
I just think it's funny that like he's sitting there in his skyscraper, just like watching the events happening. I just imagine like a Rogue Squadron pilot doing a flyby and like looking out his window and being like, "Hey, wait a second."
the plot from the last book just flies through the window.
Exactly. Knowing Tycho's luck, he probably would have seen like some lampshade that looked like it had sandy blonde or dark brown hair, depending on the book. And
There was a cloak hanging somewhere that was just the right height to be Tycho. Implicated him in all this. But
some other, yeah,
there's also the question of like how successful does Isard even expect him to be? Because she seems to want to get him killed with all this. She's kind of hoping do some damage, you're gonna die, and I'm okay with that.
yeah, me too. It is weird though, a little bit how like I kind of wish they spent less time with Lore worrying about like what Isard would do. I get that it's like she's kind of like at this point his puppet master and whatever, but almost half of like his monologues are just like him deciding whether he's going to be killed today or not. I guess that's part of the importance, but it just I don't find it very compelling, to be honest.
Yeah, you can't even really say he's just around to help progress the plot in other areas because he doesn't really accomplish much, and then nothing really has to do with him except for towards the end of the book. He is trying to kind of go around Isard and do stuff on his own to implicate Rogue Squadron in the destruction of a Bacta convoy, which we'll probably get to a little bit later.
Yeah.
And Isard already had a plan around that, so he kind of just decides that he's screwed and he's going to go to the New Republic and tell them everything he can to hopefully protect himself. But he dies on the way, and Isard wasn't even trying to kill him. Like there's both of his bosses get him in this book. There's Filarivoru, who says he found him accidentally, and there's Isard, who thought she was killing Dericote.
The whole Dericote, like that whole assassination at the end is like so bad. Like I try not to be too negative, but like they're going into a courthouse. Can you not have better security? I mean, I understand the idea that like yes, he was like thought to be a non-combatant.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic that all this suspicion about Tycho being a sleeper agent, no one had known where Derek was, which is so Wedge's friend Yellow Asiri, who was helping them in the last book, and who's also in charge of the prosecution of Tycho in the trial in this book, which is supposed to be for Cornhorn's murder, trying to accuse him of being an Imperial sleeper agent, even though he's not acting like the other Lusankia sleeper agents in any way. Her her husband had been captured by the Imperials and had disappeared,
Mhm.
and he turned up fairly recently before the events of the book and starts living with Iella again and kind of takes an interest in Tycho's case, but
Mhm.
he's been conditioned as this sleeper agent, and then at the end of the book he's the one that pops out and kills Curtin Lore. But like all this suspicion around Tycho, you'd think there'd be at least some level of the same suspicion around Derek, and that he wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really even consider that. Also, I just want to mention, if you think the fact that having his crush's husband die twice would stop Wedge.
Yeah, that was a fun scene. Like Wedge
Going to pick her
basically,
up,
yeah,
like take her out for a drink. He's got like he just went to the corner store and bought some special stuff for the night. Gets there, it's her like emancipated husband. God damn it!
shows up at their door with a pack of condoms and some flowers.
You see, the real alpha move would have been just to shoot him on the spot and be like, "I'm sorry,
Sleeper
he
agent.
turned the second I opened the door." I
Saw
swear.
it in his eyes, didn't trust him. But they all handle it pretty reasonably. Where it's like, oh, if
Yeah,
you were
I guess
dead,
you're right.
if you were dead,
Yeah,
I'd be all over this right now.
and plus the husband basically goes like just short of saying, "Listen, it's Wedge Antilles. I get it."
Yeah. Uh, the whole time though, I was picturing. Do you ever? I'm assuming you've watched Friends, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be lost on anyone who hasn't, but when Monica is dating Tom Selleck,
Oh yeah.
that's basically them and Chandler is what I was picturing the whole time or reading
Like
about.
skinny Tom Selleck.
Yeah, Chandler is Wedge, Tom
Yeah.
Selleck is Derek, and Monica is Iella. That's basically what I'm picturing this entire book.
I ate at the same restaurant as Tom Selleck once.
That's like at the same time, or it was a
Yeah,
restaurant
at the
that
same
he'd
time. Yeah,
eaten
I
at.
was in there.
Damn.
I was in there, and the waiter very rudely to Tom Selleck, he's like, "Guys, there's a celebrity in here."
It's
Selleck's
Eckhart's
mustache.
Ladder.
Yeah. Oh no, this was before my meteoric rise to fame,
No.
and when I could hardly leave the house. Sure.
I hardly ever leave the house anyways.
Yeah, true.
Working from home is great.
Yeah.
But is there anything else to really talk about with the early parts of lore? Like he does make a lot of comparisons, or he tries to highlight the comparisons between himself uh and Tarkin, especially. But there's the one part where uh he's trying to walk down the corridor talking to his new agents. He's picturing himself as a pale imitation of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Like, eh.
Yeah, he sees himself as a potential like heir to the throne.
Yeah, he's everyone important in the Empire.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird enough having Isard be so powerful, but he's like basically like an Imperial. He's like a medium level Imperial intelligence agent.
Do we meet any named Imperials in this series that don't think they're going to be the next Emperor?
I don't
Other
know.
than
Does
Ula?
Derek really? I guess Derek sees himself as assuming power.
Yeah, he starts off thinking that he's eventually going to get
And
some kind
commander
of
of the
power.
Black Asp.
But even in Teresa Bakura, Thanos was thinking
Yeah.
that he'd jump up the Imperial ranks and become the next Emperor.
Yeah, big power vacuum that everyone's trying to exploit.
Yeah. I mean, I used to work at McDonald's. Now, if the president of McDonald's Canada ever quit, I would be thinking, that's where I'm going next.
That's why you're not still working at McDonald's.
Yeah, the
If you had a bit more drive, buddy.
Right. I should quit
And
YouTube.
no one's. You see, back in my day, people were in the Empire because they loved it. I want to be the next emperor. Big Daddy Palpatine.
He's gonna live forever,
He's gonna live forever.
no matter which continuity you're in.
That's right.
Dark Empire V2.
On that today.
Yep.
One thing that I thought was interesting is that they talk about how much the New Republic is relying on Imperial like infrastructure and logistics on Coruscant, like even personnel.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last time too with the computers.
Right? Yeah, I forgot about that. But like, if you're a citizen on Coruscant, like your local post office is probably still being manned or womaned or aliened by the same person or alien.
they just they just kind of scribble out the Imperial badges and the New Republic name tape or name tag over it.
And it's just kind of weird because, like, I mean, it's sort of weird, but the previous book had talked about how like everyone on Coruscant thinks the New Republic's like here to rape and pillage. Yep.
Yeah, and then they do. That's another thing that doesn't make sense to me with all the attempts at terrorism. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to turn everyone against the New Republic, and
Yeah.
then they're doing all of this, and they're clearly trying to be Imperials doing it. And the idea is that they're trying to shake faith in the New Republic leadership to stop it,
Right.
but that's not generally what happens. It's like not gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh, you can't stop this, so we're gonna go back to the people who are doing this.
In all, it's a fairly convoluted plot. Like, I know Curtin Lore's idea is, yeah, it makes more sense, or I guess it's really Isard's idea, is bankrupt the New Republic. But like in the first book, the main issue is that Coruscant's going to be really hard to hold. And the whole reason that Rogue Squadron infiltrates is so that they can hold it like with against threats from the outside. But now we have like Curtin Lore and Imperial Commando teams inside. And instead of like, we get it, the New Republic like bankrupting it would be bad, but like so would killing Mon Mothma. Really
If you can
bad.
kill Akbar, Mon Mothma, Borsphalia, like you're taking out the entire Provisional Council in one go in multiple points
Right.
here, and also Rogue Squadron, which was his
Yeah.
job before, and he's obsessed with it before, and then he's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
not obsessed with it now, but then later in the book he's still obsessed with it, so he just can't make up his mind.
I was one of the adjudicators for the big court, the military tribunal.
Hmm.
Like he did, like I get that he just doesn't seem that important to me, and it's kind of like, I guess this is kind of like these books are still suffering from the really small universe syndrome,
Yeah.
where like Coruscant has like one fighter garrison, it's Rogue Squadron, and like the New Republic has like one fighter commander, and it's Som,
Yeah, the
his
fight
defender wing.
between the Lusankia and the New Republic's entire Coruscant Defense Force, aka Rogue Squadron.
It's like, okay, boys, we
The
I
discussion at
started
the
just killed about 10 million people. You
I
gonna
love
do
the
anything about
discussion at the
that?
end where it's like, hey, do we have a fleet, Akbar? Like, nah, man, they're
No,
elsewhere.
not
Didn't
really.
you have half the fleet? Nah, man, they're at Borlace. Oh, shit.
Skyhook.
Guess they're leaving anyways. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's why the Essential Guide to Warfare is so good, because it kind of, it explains, okay, they didn't just have two fleets. They had four big fleets with a bunch of little task forces, but like you had just captured Coruscant.
Yeah, such a build up over, oh, it's going to be impossible to hold. Even if we do
Right.
get the shields up, or get the planet with the shields up, we melted a Golan, so we're down that as well.
Yeah, and we learn in this book that a super star destroyer can puncture through the planetary shields pretty quickly. I hope none of the other warlords are well known for having a super star destroyer.
Oh, actually, wait. I think they mentioned a few times, but Warlord Zinj is,
Oh yes.
yeah. So
Uh,
you must have just overlooked that.
or yeah. Uh, I don't know how I feel about the. I mean, we're getting way off track, but that's okay. I don't know how I feel about the Lusanki being able to bust through the planetary shield. It's like essentially in 10 minutes. It feels like
Yeah. Well, it's probably even less than
it's only
that
a
because it
small
comes
bit.
out and then
Yeah,
it's just lifting off,
the first layer.
and it's pretty
Yeah.
much flying the entire time it's going towards it and shooting. And I was
Mhm.
giving some nice visual aids there, but
Yeah.
yeah, it makes
So
sense that
like,
it'd be
and
able to puncture the small area if it's focusing everything
I
on
agree.
that.
Yeah, I agree.
New Republic may as
But
well have
that's
just
been
shut its
generally.
shield down.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. That would have been generally like, because it gets lambasted quite often. I don't hate it. Like this series is pretty pulpy, so I don't hate that scene.
Yeah, works enough. If they couldn't have done it, just she's gonna cause a lot of damage trying to get out. We should lower the shields. That I'm assuming that would be the other way to handle it.
Yeah.
But
Um, I do like how that's basically the Last Jedi moment, because there's like 2 or 3 major plot points like coming to a head. We've got it busting through the shield, and then we have Korn breaking open the doors of the courtroom and being like, "Stop right there!" Yeah, and then I don't know. There's probably a third thing happening as well, but yeah,
Lord getting shot around the same time, but that's slightly before, and
yeah,
because that
yeah,
third plot point is what ends a lot earlier, or a bit earlier.
yeah, yeah, totally.
But so they talk a bit about, or it comes up a few times, how Isard's goal is not the resurrection of the Empire, just the destruction of the rebellion, and then Lore sees it as the Empire coming back after that, which I do wish we got a bit more inside Isard's mind. Like you were
Agreed.
saying, where it's like we're getting Lore's point of view here. Lore's
Mhm.
ultimately ineffective, but we don't know how or why, or we don't know what the ultimate goals are with that. And it's been a long time since I've looked at anything for Back to War, so I don't know if that's something that we get more of next
I'm
time.
not sure either. I mean, these books are pretty self-contained, so I doubt we get major. From what I remember in Back to War, like she's pretty happy, just kind of
Being the warlord of
dumb.
Trifera.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think if you were to, because she gets, Isart does get a lot of later recognition. So I mean, maybe they could say she was the New Republic for Thrawn or the Dark Empire or something. I don't know.
Well, she was a lot of the time trying to just stop Thrawn from coming to take over from her.
That's
So,
true. Yeah, that's
like
true.
filtering her people, like sending her Soontir Fel. Video on that coming on Saturday. Uh, but I guess we'll just finish off Thor's stuff here, where the
Mhm.
next major thing that happens is like he's trying to find the Bacta storage locations because the Bacta is the only thing that can cure the Krytos virus,
Right.
and his way to do this is airspeeder bombs. But while he's setting all of this up, he gets pulled over by uh, on this planet of 1.5 trillion people or whatever.
Which is woefully like an underrepresentation based on the density and the size of Coruscant.
Yeah,
I did the math one day.
Voru finds him accidentally, pulls him in
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
car as he's going about his day. I guess he tracked him down a different way first and then intercepted him, but it's still like, really?
The relationship between Voru, or with Voru, is kind of weird because Lore should have like he should be able to disappear. Like I don't think I guess I get it's the Black Sun, but I still don't think he should be being dictated to by like essentially a criminal warlord.
Yeah, the stuff that Voru tries to get him to do also doesn't make any sense. Like Voru's whole position on the planet is that he is, as long as there is this threat from Lore, his he's needed by the New Republic to stop the underworld from
Yeah,
being able to do what he's doing. But Voru also specifically forbids him from attacking anything that's held by Voru, and
yeah, he's selling a lot of back on the side. It seems.
yeah, and you'd expect that Kraken would have, if Kraken is not entirely incompetent, because it seems like everyone else is able to find out whatever they want going on at any
Yeah,
given time on Coruscant. But you'd think that there'd be like this pattern of, hey, these aren't being attacked. Nothing that we know has to do with Voru is getting screwed with at all, even
mm.
aside from like private back to or hidden back to assets. Uh, so hey, what's going on with that?
Yeah. The whole like with the criminal underworld never makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot about Coruscant that makes like it's pretty questionable. I mean, it's such a large planet. It's like an Earth-sized planet, and all the action takes place in like 3 blocks, and it's like kilometer like
Yeah,
the buildings are stretching kilometers and kilometers. Like you never hear like, oh, there's an attack on a Bacta convoy, but it's on the other side of the planet. Like, too bad, Rogue Squadron, you're not hitting that one.
luckily everything is 10 feet away from Imperial Palace. If Lusankia hadn't been hidden right there, who knows what they
True.
would have done.
Yeah, I might have blasted off. No one would even notice. Like Admiral Akbar would have checked Twitter later. Be like, oh crap.
Well, also with Corrin getting to his or Tycho's trial quickly enough, he does take a long speeder ride to get to where he was, but I wasn't sure if that was within Lusankia.
I don't think so because isn't he out of the museum? Oh, you mean right? Like the shuttle or whatever, like he
Yeah,
falls asleep on.
because the exit from
Yeah, that part
Lusankia
was
does come out there. But
Shuttle ride and falls asleep and has a shower, I think.
yeah, he's in there for the better part of a day, I think. So
In
it's
the shuttle?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a considerable distance away.
Probably some underground tunnels or something.
Yeah.
Plus, Luke visits the area later, and it's fine. And the Lusenki basically destroys everything around it when it's taking off. So
Yeah. Then some of
probably
those
some
droids
considerable
come
distance.
back and build everything back up. Does it? That's a question that came up for me when I was reading that part about how the droids function. Like, if all those things were killed or were destroyed by the Lusankia, and there were a bunch of aliens and people, or I guess aliens are people too. If there were a bunch of people in the area that were killed by it, and the droids just come through and recycle the resources, do those new buildings have people in them? And by in them, I don't mean living in them. I mean, are there people incorporated into the
the
buildings?
shutters and the bones sticking out of the wall.
Yeah,
Probably.
it's
Probably some melted
disgusting.
Gamorreans.
Oh, that was disgusting too. But
One of the weird things with this series, it like kind of young reader esque. Then it like the sex bits and the violent bits are pretty,
yeah, the melting Gamorrean is definitely
mhm.
up there in terms of how grotesque some of the, especially this era of Star Wars gets.
Yeah,
I don't
for
think you
sure.
get much. It is Gavin that sees that too, and he's like
Yeah, he's like, have
17.
you ever played Gears of War?
Yeah,
Sometimes when like like you blow an enemy up, one of the lines is like, "Ugh, got some on me," or like after they stomp an enemy up. That's basically his reaction here. He's
yeah,
like,
that's gross.
ugh,
I'm just gonna
ugh.
have to clean this up.
Yeah, I think I catch the whole place on fire afterwards, so that's probably for the best.
Mm. At least the guy locked his door so
So
no one else would get infected.
yeah, like they don't like that's pretty damn noble.
Yeah,
Game wasn't part of the squadron at this point.
no.
Piggy.
Yeah, well, the Gamorreans, the Ewoks, these are all things that come
Yeah.
later. So there's a high turnover rate in Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, although not really when you think about the fact that they go into battles where they're like really poorly outnumbered and
Yeah,
nothing's impossible for Rogue Squadron every time they come out with like no casualties. Like in this book, they don't even take like a couple of times they get their shields buzzed a bit, but
they don't really do much in this book that's combat oriented. They have well,
for
we'll
real.
get to there's like three
Yeah.
missions they fly, but I guess we'll
Which are all kind of pointless. Like it's just like back to
yeah.
back to back to.
I guess we'll just wrap up the lore stuff and move on to. We can either go over Corrin stuff next or Tycho's trial after lore stuff.
Doesn't matter to me. Let's do Tycho's trial.
All right, so I guess the last things with lore that like the biggest thing uh that Voru tells him to do is instead of trying to target Rogue Squadron, which he'd wanted to, Voru vetoes that, and Lord's like, "You can't veto that," and Voru says, "I just did." So no argument there. It was great. Uh, but instead, Voru tells him he should be blowing up a school, which is up there
Yeah.
with melting Gamorrean, I think, in what happens. And we've talked a lot in the last two episodes about how on board with everything Lore actually is, and this is something that Voru and Lore kind of talk about, where Lore doesn't want to do it, and Voru's like, "Well, you're okay with the Krytos virus killing them, so is this just that you'll feel more responsible for it?"
Kind of does make me feel a bit because when I read the previous two novels, I did think that, or I guess the last novel, I did feel like Lore does have an element of not wanting to do it. I don't think he puts it forward, and I think he probably lies to himself. But like, there are several scenes where he's disgusted, and I think it's just kind of the whole idea that he's a pretty shitty Imperial at the end of the day.
Yeah, he wants
Not,
the glory, but he doesn't.
yeah, he doesn't have the
He's sort of okay with stuff happening. He just doesn't want to feel personally responsible for it,
right.
which is almost worse than
Yeah, no, it's
actually
totally
doing
worse.
it. Like, I want to benefit from this, and I want credit for this. I just don't want to feel personally responsible for doing this.
Exactly. Yeah. Has like delusions of grandeur too because he does get elevated by like pretty significantly by Isard. But I think that she doesn't see his position as elevated, but he does. So it kind of gives him a bit of a big head.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes, the blowing up the school and everything kind of goes to what my biggest problem is with this subplot, is that uh he's supposed to be stirring up the population again, like making them doubt the New Republic's ability to protect them. But that's kind of also what the Krytos virus is supposed to be doing, and is doing a much better job. Like, we never hear about anyone actually caring about what Lore is doing.
Yeah,
on
that
the
is a big
ground.
problem.
So it's
Main
just
characters reporting about it like the next day, like, well, Lore blew or the Empire blew up a school the other day.
cue Zuko gif from Avatar.
Yeah.
That's rough, buddy,
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like the whole book could have just gone on without that, and literally nothing would change.
Mhm.
You could focus a lot more on the actual effects of the Krytos virus, which you really only get in that scene
Mhm.
with Gavin and the Gamorrean, where he's doing the treatments there, and then a bit with the Provisional Council, where they're talking about how difficult it's going to be to manage, but you don't get any of the on-the-ground effects from it.
Just
And
kind of
that
weird
was so
because
much
the
better.
last book, yeah, like the last book does such a good job of like showing Coruscant like from a personal level when they're undercover, and this book is like it doesn't. And you're right, because the at least to me, the Bacta stuff isn't very compelling because they don't do a good job of setting up like I guess they set up the stakes, but they don't do a good job of like, keeping tally. Like we really need this, or like we're gonna lose a million people. It's just like, okay, we've done this. Sometimes the Bacta gets destroyed afterwards, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
You know,
like, it is also set up as a way for Lore to destroy some Bacta stores, or other people are selling it, but the selling it turns into a bigger problem. Like, Voru selling it is the bigger problem uh, than Lore destroying it, because we never really follow through on hearing about which of Lore's plans are actually successful to do it.
right.
But
Yeah, you got a good point. And that you are aware of it. You're right. That there's a little too much going on. Same as in the last book, in my opinion.
is that there's too much going on with none of it actually, with nothing going on.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
what a point. Anything else you want to talk about with Lore's subplot here? Because
No,
I've
but it
said
does
about,
take time away from squadron bonding and stuff, which I think is a fun part of the other two novels,
yeah.
especially the first one.
Yeah, there's a lot less character development outside of. We get a little bit more Wedge in this book.
Yep, we do.
And obviously Tycho. Tycho's the real star of this book.
But
Corin's
do you think
away
we
for
do
the
get
whole
more of
time.
Tycho in the end?
Yeah,
Yeah.
even in the last few books, it's more people talking about Tycho, and we see one or two scenes with him. In this book, there's a lot more from his perspective, and if people are talking about him, he's at least there for it, so we see his reactions to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the same with Wedge, where in the last two books, they're kind of these, even with the suspicion around Tycho, they're portrayed as like these untouchable, above it all characters, because that's just, it's about forming Rogue Squadron, and then there's a little bit more of them in Wedge's Gamble, but they're still supposed to be like these legends, and in this one, it's more, they're not legends, they're just these people, and it's more from their perspective.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
But I guess
Shall we move on to a discussion of?
yeah.
Do we want to do Tycho now?
Yeah, I guess we can start off with a little bit about the council and some of what they're doing about
Right.
the Krytos virus with the books too, because we get some early, some of the early scenes with Wedge are at the Provisional Council or with the Provisional Council after the funeral for Corin, trying to convince the council to stop the trial for Tycho.
Yeah, and Wedge is being really unfair because there's clearly a tribal issue. Whether he's guilty or not, like you can decide that in court. But he's like, he doesn't deserve this, but like, guilty. But there's clearly he might be.
Yeah, this is
Like
your.
that's a very
wheelhouse,
imperial
so.
thing to do. Like it's like one of the first big cases since the like judiciary, or it's not really the judiciary, but it's the military courts. And Wedge is like, and they're like, no, like he might not be. And he's like, we'll see.
Yeah, the way the rest of the council argues for it isn't really that great either. Like they don't focus on the fact that Corrin's dead. He's on trial for murder. There's a reason to believe he did it. It's gonna be a fair trial, and we'll go from there. It's more like, oh, but if we don't do it, people will be mad.
Right.
They just focus on the optics, which is like the worst way to convince Wedge. Where he doesn't care about the political optics that much. It's
he's not a policy guy. I agree. It's just like Wedge is being unreasonable.
Yeah. They have a lot of, at least, even if it is kind of circumstantial for some of it, they have a good amount of evidence. Tycho has 15 million credits.
I mean, the Corrin Horn thing enough, like right before the battle and what he thought was a threat, like that's probably enough right there.
Yeah, like everything that turned out to not be the case, like the Lai Nutka being mistaken for him was kind of weak, but no one knew why Corrin thought it was Tycho, and then with whoever would have had access to the headhunter, no one else mentioned Erisi going over the headhunter. So there's...
And the thing with Jace, too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons to believe, just because of people miscommunicating or Corrin being too dead to, or allegedly too dead to let people know what's actually going on, that
I agree.
Tycho should be tried.
Yeah, totally. Let the courts figure it out. I mean, it is. I do find it a little disappointing that like this book does this, but Fate of the Jedi does this way worse, in that the way the court is set up is literally the exact same as other popular series. Like they've got bailiffs, they've got tribunal. They don't have a jury in this, only because it's a military trial. But like they've got rules of hearsay and evidence, and it's just, I don't know. If the movies did a big trial like that, I think they would have thought of something different or more interesting.
A new way for space trials instead of just typical media trials.
Exactly.
Well, it's great that like there's no such thing as conflict of interest or anything.
Yeah, true.
People have like all, but sure for the defendant picking his defense attorney, but like
you really shouldn't even have a conflict of interest there.
The fact that Iella and Etik are in the positions they are, and just it's very convenient that they knew everyone.
Yeah, and what's his name has already basically prejudged him as well.
Yeah, if they're worried about the optics of the trial and looking like Tycho got off easy, then stacking everything with his friends or people who are in the public eye supposed to be his friends seem like a really bad way to get
having one of the judges being like, "Boy, I knew he wasn't guilty because of secret military stuff." Can't tell you. You gotta trust me.
Yeah, Aaron Kraken's kind of a dick.
Like, you can't even sneak into his room and be like, "Boy, don't worry, I got you."
Well, Tycho kind of has to believe it's real, or else I don't think Tycho's a great actor. I'm not sure if that's...
I think you're probably right.
But just the psychological trauma he'd be under. Like, what if Tycho killed himself in...
Exactly, which would have been reasonable. That's what what's her name did in Fate of the Jedi. What's her name? Mon Cala Admiral. The one who partnered... What?
Neothal?
The one who partnered with Jason, remember?
Yeah,
the other chief of state? Yeah, Neothal. Yeah.
Like, Kraken does know that's not going to happen. And he does say that I wasn't sure Tycho wasn't a sleeper agent. Just that he wasn't the spy within Rogue Squadron, which fair enough.
Actually, the same as Fate of the Jedi, because the whole reason Neothal kills herself is because she doesn't want to divide, basically, like, the Galactic Alliance. So, like, this trial is literally like a... So, I'm like, oh, kill myself and everyone will know they're being equally hard on humans.
And then it'll just rip apart the Republic anyways, because everyone will be upset that it turned out he didn't do anything. So nothing is accomplished.
Would have been interesting. Would have been an interesting plotline.
If Tycho would have committed suicide in the book.
Yeah, it would have been nutty. That would have been nutty.
His skin melts.
Big nuts to make that move. I toss virus Gamorrean.
Yep.
I don't know. Like the second, anytime like there's a discussion of hearsay laws, I'm just like, bruh.
So are there
course.
any specific points of
They get the hearsay pretty much right, because the basic rule of hearsay is, so like if I tell you going to the bathroom, it's not hearsay for you to say that, okay, Justin told me he was going to the bathroom, but it is hearsay for you to tell me, or for you to say Justin went to the bathroom, unless you witnessed it. Or like a better example would be like, if I said earlier I saw Isar taking a bath with like it wouldn't be hearsay to say that I told you that, but it'd be hearsay to evaluate it based on the truth, with some exceptions.
I started taking a bath with Corrin because everyone wants to take a bath with Corrin in the series.
Exactly.
So do you want to give your credentials here for?
I'm technically a lawyer, technically a called lawyer, but I'm not practicing right now, obviously, because Star Wars is cooler. But part about any sort of like, this book is better than some of the other times where court proceedings come up in Star Wars. The worst thing is you have a lot of the lawyers delivering basically testimony. For example, you never like have a lawyer just say, but the thing is, we witnessed, or like Joe witnessed this happen. You'd have to, interview Joe and be like, hey Joe, like, like lawyers can't give evidence. They can't like go off on long spiels like that. Yeah.
So you're saying that Star Wars Law and Order is not an accurate show?
I mean, it's accurate to real world Law and Order.
No, I mean when this became a special episode of Law and Order.
Oh yeah. No, you're right.
Didn't you watch that episode?
I didn't care for it.
In law school, didn't you wasn't all the homework just to watch Law and Order?
No, we did in the very first day of law school. We watched the episode of the Trailer Park Boys where Ricky goes to court.
Damn, that's even worse.
It's actually like it's like there's a pretty important issue about like oneself or access to legal services. If I can't smoke or swear,
Is Trailer Park Boys a thing outside of Canada?
A little bit. Now that it's on Netflix, I think.
Okay, so this isn't going to be like the most Canadian thing since the first episode, and we have said sorry like 3 times in
it'll be fairly Canadian.
15 seconds. Yeah, so
it'll be fairly Canadian.
One of the first things though with the Provisional Council when they're talking about how to treat the Krytos virus is we get a lot of discussion about what will and won't work in like Star Wars alt med, and early on we hear about how Cian Sop, was it Cian Sop? No,
it was
the other Celestian. Not all Celestians are Cian Sop.
Yeah, the other one.
But whoever's on the Provisional Council. And Nub? That?
No.
I'm a Celestian racist. But whoever's on the Provisional Council there was no evidence that he had been exposed to the Krytos virus, but he still had preventative Bacta treatment. Then later on in the book, there's no evidence that preventative Bacta treatment does anything.
Yeah, they're basically showering themselves.
Yeah, no one has access to Bacta, and they're just misting it everywhere.
Doing it.
Yeah, I think it comes up twice that the Provisional Council is doing it, and then Borsphalia is proposing like a Bacta spa situation. And
they actually kind of run a bit of a Bacta spa, don't they? Don't they have it like misting at one point?
Yeah, they're doing that for themselves, but then when Bors tries to bring it as a thing to do for everyone else, it's like, there's no evidence that'll work. Meanwhile...
Yeah.
Bors gets...
he's such a dick in this book.
He is deservedly pointed out to be a dick, but everyone else is also just being a...
Yeah.
Like, really highlighting the class struggles in Star Wars.
Yeah. It's like, well, I guess all these aliens are dying and turning into goo. Way she goes, boys.
They should have Mon Mothma giving all of her speeches from a Bacta tank. Just make the optics as bad as possible.
Like a tank, like a shower with like extreme runoff.
They're just all these aliens trying to run up to her feet and like slurp the Bacta off the ground.
God damn it, Mothma, turn the Bacta off when you're not brushing your teeth.
The damn, really lost track now.
Yeah, we were talking about. So I guess we got the mission to Emperor's Station. That's not really related to the trial. It's just as a way to get more backup or more
Yeah,
Bacta.
there's
Not a lot there.
all the
Really.
recesses for Rogue Squadron missions because on both sides everyone is involved in it. So
Exactly.
I think the Provisional Council meeting is where we get most of the evidence dropped on us about Tycho, right? Because that's where the 15
Yeah.
million credits are pointed out. So Isard had set up some accounts for him and put credits in.
Yeah, and which is really dumb because why is a sleeper agent going to be paid?
Yeah,
Like,
which Wedge points out optics.
it's like, and the Thrawn trilogy does a really good job of doing that, like making you second guess your like. The New Republic is always second guessing themselves like all the time when they fight Thrawn, but it's kind of believable. With Isard, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Her like most notable feature is she's got different colored eyes and they call her Ice Heart.
Yeah, there's a lot that's just put to like, oh, this is really obvious, but it's not obvious because it's Isard. If we knew what she was doing, then what a
Yeah, but she
crazy
hasn't
world
earned
that
that
would
yet.
be. Like, you've guessed everything. This is just she deserves none of the credit you're giving her. We have never seen her do anything competently.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the first things we see
One
in
thing
the
I
book
like
is
about
failing to condition Corrin.
yeah, exactly. And Yondo Donna.
Yeah,
They don't
that's
mention
a
his last name in this one, do they? But they,
no.
I,
Heavily
yeah.
imply.
John, who else has that name? He's got a beard.
Old
Since,
man. They slowly
yeah,
just work you into it.
beard. I
And they
know that
did mention
face.
him as being dead a few books ago, so they were setting it up. This was
Oh,
a long
really?
con. As we brought
Oh,
it up earlier, I think it was in Rogue Squadron where uh, back then the rebels didn't have any admirals, and we
right.
lost Jan, so they barely had any generals or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm really reaching back here, but it was
Yeah, and the whole Battle of Yavin evacuation is like a very convoluted thing because there's been like three different takes on it. There's like the Star Wars Marvel comics, like from back in the day. They covered that like as part of the like the ongoing series in the 70s, and then they one of the Rogue Squadron games, and I'm sure covered elsewhere as well. But like that one where they that pretty famous shot of the Super Star Destroyer tanking a shot from two regular Star Destroyers that come out of hyperspace. Everyone uses that for like Star Destroyers have really strong shields. That's from Vader blockading Yavin.
Mon Ramonda is the other. Every capital ship can beat a super star destroyer one on one.
Our 12 X-Wing could probably do it.
Oh, that comes up again.
Yep.
But yeah, so we get all that evidence, and then Rogue Squadron has their first mission of the book of 3 missions, where again, going for back to I'm about to be arrested. Sorry. But they're being sent to an Empress class station in the Yagdul system, which is where Zinj has sent.
That's on the cover too.
Yeah, that's the circly station on the cover. And the other fun thing about where Yagdal is that Zinj's territory is all like northeast part of the galaxy, and Yagdal is middle south. So it had to be close to Typhera because they were getting the shipment of back to there. But Zinj has the station over Yagdal. They go there for the captured convoy.
Are there Mon Cal cruisers in the actual battle? I don't think so.
No, it's just the fighters.
Yeah.
But the cover
And like
does
some
have 2 weird
convoys.
ships, which are they look very Bakarin, but are I assume supposed to be Moncals. They kind of look like MC90, the other
Yeah, they
kind of
do actually.
MC90s.
Yep. What was I going to say? One thing I don't like, there's too many bug species introduced at this point because you've got the Vratex and the what are the other one? Rogue Squadron's engineer, basically.
Is he one of the ones from Roche or something?
Yes. What are they called again? Dang it.
What was his name?
It's like Zri or Vri.
Zrai, I think. Zrai. Verpine.
Right.
He doesn't show up very much. So
Right.
I actually kind of
But
like
they
how they
confuse
handle that though.
as a character. But the reason why I was kind of confused is because Yogg-Duel is also home to the Given, who are kind of they're not insectoid, I don't think, but they're species. They're confusing to me because they're like the other one because they have like the math ability,
Skull Boys.
like hyperspace calculations in their head. What's that species again? The other, not Vratek, but the other one.
Uh,
Verpine, right? And aren't Verpine like that too? Like they've got natural, not mathematics, but like
all the insectoid species do end up being pretty Geonosians,
so there's the
Vratex,
Verpine. The Vratex who are insectoid. I don't know. Do the Vratex have? They must because they do like the back to stuff. And then there's the Given from Yogg-Duel. It's just like too much in my mind.
They're more like kind of
insects. They're like they're like the Gan kind of.
But the thing I do like about how they handle the insects are when this is after they come back from this mission, but when Mirax shows Wedge to the Verpine who want to help the New Republic
I like that too.
as a way to get in. But their communication in that scene, where it's like the Verpine is communicating as if Mirax and Wedge have the same mind link they do, and it's not something we really see a lot in Star Wars, where it's like the species actually are different. I like it. And
just mention like, oh, he was a Shistavanian or whatever, and they like always touching on Wedge and stuff, and Wedge gets kind of down with it by the end, and Luke at the end already knows.
So. Yeah, because Luke is a mysterious Jedi warrior who's off being all successful at this point, even though everyone dies.
Corin Orn, your grandfather was a Jedi? Good enough for me.
Yeah. The battle with the Empress class, 3 squadrons of fighters, of course, is enough to take it down because fighters can do whatever they need to. And all the fighters surrendered. They agree to be guards for the convoy because they're mercenaries and they want to keep their TIE fighters. A lot of the fighters kind of gets yada-yada'd.
I did like the one thing with the fighters not being too OP is when they get like all 12 on one strike cruiser. I was like, that seems right to me.
Yeah, because they're very fragile.
Like the description of the strike cruiser in this book, actually. Yeah. It's basically like, hey, did we mess up the strike cruiser description prior? Don't worry about it. They're all different.
That's at the graveyard. Yeah.
I'll hit the strike cruiser, but like I guess they're like coming from under. That was a pretty cool battle, I guess.
Was the graveyard battle that was after the?
It's after the Empress attack. Yeah.
No, the Empress is first, and then they do the Rhodia raid, or not Rhodia, the Ryloth mission.
Yeah.
And then they do the graveyard Alderaan mission.
Yeah, I like that one because it was kind of unique for Rogue Squadron to be coming in like mid-battle, and they described it as coming from beneath, and they basically just like
space is 3-dimensional.
Yeah, and then of course Mirax is presumed dead. She's not. No one cares about everyone else later on.
Yeah, I guess right after they get back from the Empress thing, that's around when we get some of the stuff that Wedge is interested in in Iella. Derek is there. We already covered a lot of that. But then Mirax calls Wedge over when Wedge is trying to bring Derek and Iella out on a threesome date for lunch, and that's when we meet the Vratics. So they, like we were saying, want to give the New Republic. They want to work on a cure for the Krytos virus, and use that. If Wedge in return will argue for them to join the New Republic, but there's the issue that the Vratics, or Krillern, who's the specific Vratics, is part of the Asheran rebels, who the Bacta conglomerates hate. So Arisi wouldn't be happy with this.
Yeah, and it's kind of an issue that like we see a lot more of in the next book. I honestly find it a bit tiring, but like it's just frustrating that like the New Republic becomes a quasi enemy so early on. It's like, yeah, we can't do this thing that is clearly moral. Like they're not like overthrowing a democratically elected people. They're like overthrowing, or they want to overthrow once she runs the Typhera. They want to overthrow her because she came with a super star destroyer. How much free will is there really?
Yeah, this Imperial person comes and installs himself as the overlord of this planet, where the native species clearly wants nothing to do with her and is rebelling, but we can't do anything because the one faction of humans supports her.
Yeah, and they're like, well, this will cause hundreds of systems to leave. Not really. Like, if you don't want the New Republic to seem like dickless, pardon my French, like the Given.
Yeah, isn't the whole point that they're all afraid that the Imperials are trying to make it look like the Republic has no ability to protect people, and now they're like,
exactly.
we can't do that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the second mission, which I guess we'll just skip to there, is that if they synthesize Bacta and Rilkor, they can make a Rilka cure, or a cure they call Rilka, which I guess is Bacta and Ril together. Is that where that
somehow a lot easier to make and produce?
Yeah, but the name Rilka, is that?
Yeah. Is that right?
Was that just named because it was a combination of the two, or was that something else already?
I assume. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, either way, they need to go to Ryloth.
What do they call the really high quality Ril again?
Rilkor.
So.
Because it's hardcore.
There's precedent for it, I guess.
Yeah, so they're going to go to Ryloth because that's where that's apparently going to be, which is convenient because it's Noir Aven who's acting as Tycho's lawyer. That's where he's from. And then one of the weirdest series of events in the series happens, where they get to Ryloth, and then there's this whole show of these merchants trying to go off to Wedge, and there's troopers involved and everything. And then a warrior interrupts and is like, "Oh, we gotta treat him to the real warrior show." And then Wedge points.
Wedge thinks he's gonna have a duel to the death, and he's pretty ready too.
Yeah.
Another rogue.
And then it just.
I hope they don't make me fight another rogue.
It would be a shame to have to kill Noara.
Yeah, seriously. One thing I do like, though, this is kind of related, I guess tangentially. They have, I think they use vibro swords, and there's like a scene later on, or like one thing they say is like it's like stabbing with a vibro sword and like changing the oscillation. I thought that was a kind of like nice visual image. Make like the edge kind of fluctuate and.
Very good in KOTOR.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so punk is going for stealth.
They don't even really have to do anything there because the merchants don't want him to do anything. The warrior dude doesn't want him to do anything except for like maybe kill the merchant dudes, but they just leave. So they just get the Kieran go, or the real Korin go.
I remember that part, so I kind of just like skipped through it.
Yeah, nothing really happens there. And the third mission is the really important one, where we talked about it a bit with Lore, where he had he got the interception, or the intercepted communique that was supposed to go to Isard, that there was the convoy of Bacta going through the graveyard, and then he was going to send a fake rogue squadron to get it, but Isard had already gotten the communication. He wasn't sure how, but it's because Isard is on Coruscant and Lusankia still. And Zin, like Isard had sent Zinj the information, so Zin shows up, blows up the fake rogue squadron that Laura had sent, blows up the convoy, and allegedly, or everyone thinks, blew up Mirax, who had luckily gotten away and gone to Borleus to research more Kier stuff.
Yeah, she basically saved everything.
Yeah, off screen.
It's a bit much with like Mirax and Korin both. These books do a lot, like revealing big plot points, like in passing. Like I'm pretty sure they say that Mirax is left alive during Mon Mothma's speech.
Yeah, it was like
the
not even mentioned at all until afterwards. You don't even get a moment of Korin being like, oh no, Mirix is dead. You just get,
Yeah.
hey, it's great that Mirix is alive. Oh yeah, did we forget to mention that she solved the plot while I was busy doing other stuff?
I spent an hour in the Jedi History Museum taking notes in my binder. But yeah, that's yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's the first time we really see a Super Star Destroyer in action because it's the Iron Fist is basically just leaving, right?
Yeah, they get there just as it's headed out of the system, I think.
They do a good job showing like the brutality as well.
Yeah. And this is kind of, it's still setting up Zinj. It's like the first time we really get to see Zinj doing stuff too, where he's just this off-screen threat for the rest of it.
Yeah. One minor thing: the Super Star Destroyers in this, of course, are described as 8 kilometers long.
Oh.
Dark Empire describes the eclipse as being 15 kilometers long, or 17 and a half kilometers long, or something, whatever that is. Got retconned, so the Executor ended up being larger, but the eclipse never got the, because proportionally, if the Executor is getting a boost up, clearly the eclipse is meant to be the larger version, right? So it should have got the
Yeah, I think they just went the
proportional boost
direction
as
of
well.
like the Eclipse is bulkier.
Yeah, they did.
So, the Executor went through like, what, 4 different sizes?
Yeah, it was like 8, 12, I think like 17 and 15 and 19.
Yeah. Every possible size, and then
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah, it was a settled issue by the time I started really being into that stuff. So
yeah. I remember starting the Thrawn's Revenge mods, and it was still slightly wonky. It was mostly settled, but it wasn't entirely as accepted.
right.
So there was still a lot of reading Curtis Saxton's Star Wars technical commentaries.
Yes. See, listen. One way to figure it out: take the size of the hangar on the home one, take the size of a Lambda shuttle, compare the two, find the size of the home one, compare the home one with the Executor, then take that number and figure out that the Death Star is actually 900 kilometers in diameter.
And then you can also scale it against the potato in the asteroid field and shoe it
Yes.
off.
Yes, and then you give Curtis Saxton a incredible cross sections book where he says that and hit targets 12 light minutes away, which is like 100,000 plus kilometers.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we need to scale up the maps in Thrawn's Revenge.
Yeah. This book, Wedge is like 400 meters away. He's like, oh, boys, don't know if I can hit it.
I don't know if I'm in the right position to fly through someone's living room window that I know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, so that kind of covers a lot of the missions, which again, none of them really result in too much. It's just off screen. Are we getting enough Bacta stuff? But over the course of that, there's still stuff going on with Tycho's trial where the rogues really suck at testifying. They all get angry, like, why are you trying to argue with me in this adversarial system?
True.
I don't understand.
And yeah, Ben's not a very good lawyer either because he doesn't even try to like anything. Like he probably could have negotiated for him instead of being murdered with a plea or something. Although, actually, no, never mind. They probably mentioned that, and Corin probably says no. Never mind. Ignore that.
Well, you think more of the book should have been Nawara trying to convince Tycho to take the
Listen,
plea
I
deal?
never once saw Nawara do an indexing of the funds in his capital expenditures account. So
Yeah,
just stop.
that just brought up the thing where when they were wrapping it all up and they found that other imperial accountant or whatever that completely
yeah.
slipped my mind until now. It was like, well, do you know that if this is something they did with anyone else where it turned out to be fake? Like, yeah, most times, but we didn't think it was the case this time.
Did you see him spend any of the money ever? Well, no.
Did he seem to know it was there? No.
Is there a reason why he got 15 million credits when he was kind of a bum? Even in your system? No.
It was a great way to set them up for what they're going to be doing next book, but
Yeah, true.
Okay,
I want to take a little not recess, but I want to take a second to note 2 of my favorite words. One from the previous book that I forgot to mention, and that is Admiral Akbar says the word scuttlebutt.
mm-hmm.
I forget what the meaning is. It's hold on.
Hoopla.
My Kindle
A lot
can
of
tell me.
scuttlebutt,
It is a
rumors
gossip.
and gossip.
This is the definition in the Kindle. The scuttlebutt had it that he was a government spy.
Tycho?
Well, I don't know.
Is
And
this
then the
all
other one
coming
is
together?
hollow shill. I really like that.
Hollow shill?
Hollow shill, like just going on the TV and just spouting crap.
Oh, yeah, so like the Billy Mays. Would that be a Billy Mays? Is he a
No,
hollow
I
shill?
think they're referring to reporters. Yeah, I
Okay.
guess so as well.
The
Scuttlebutt is gossip in military circles. There you go.
I love that the setup for the
Shipboard rumors.
deal
Oh,
for Lore to testify is like, okay, you're gonna go on this press conference and give this
yeah,
phrase rather than just tell me.
I know. I'll just send a boy over and like I'll just send one of my bros over and we can pick you up and
Just make it as dumb a phrase as possible. Get Noir to go on the news and say the eagle has landed.
the bathwater is running cold. The bathwater is running cold.
The ice reservoirs are melting tonight.
I'm sure that Akbar could really help with some similes or metaphors.
Oh god, I did record as many of those as I could remember. As I complained about them last time, where everything Akbar says has to be an ocean metaphor.
Yeah.
We have in this book, trouble is a vast ocean, and for us, factor distribution is the issue lurking in the depths.
You do a better Akbar than Anthony Heald or whoever did the audiobook.
The trial is indeed a concern of mine, but I consider a trap or a cove. My real concern is the ocean of security for the New Republic. Then there's a treacherous riptide shifts of allegiances, which I thought was apt. I'm gonna forgive
Yeah,
that
I like
one.
that one.
I concur that this is the tide on which you should sail is the other one. And then last we have, so actually 5. Akbar's barbells twitched. In the black depths all manner of beasts can swim. Which also probably more apt for where he's from. But just the way he communicates to everyone else of everything
Yeah,
has to
Mon
be a sea
Mothma's just
metaphor.
so tired of this shit. Like Mon Mothma's got like Phalia with just his self and Akbar with all these endless ocean references. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Akbar's like, "Oh, the skies are gray today, indicating that we might be." And then Mon Mothma's just like, "Holy hell, shut up!" Like, I'd love a scene where it was just like Mon Mothma's just like, "Shut up."
We should just get a bunch of scenes with Phalia talking about hairballs and stuff.
True. Or
The
Phalia.
Kratos is the biggest furball for the New Republic right now.
Bothans, it's funny when you start reading Star Wars books, you see like the things every author does, making Bothans have their ears twitch or like their hair ruffling and whatever.
Yeah. They're like the most conspicuous, unable to conceal their emotions beings, but they're the best spies ever because they can
Yeah.
conceal themselves in some way.
And every time they meet someone, they're like, "Well, how about that second Death Star?" You guys
Every
didn't forget that
Bothan
one, did
pickup line just involves opening. Hey, you notice how your planet hasn't been blown up?
you? It's kind of bullshit that Disney did Rogue One first.
Is
For
Rogue 2
yeah.
just Bothans?
Zahn has a lot of good ones. He says, oh, what words does he say a lot?
Scuttlebutt?
What?
Scuttlebutt?
I guess we'll get there when we
Yeah.
yeah.
So the trial comes to its natural conclusion when Corrin shows up and absolves everyone's concerns, and Kraken says, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
Thereby rendering a second
He
plot
doesn't
line
need
almost entirely moot.
Yeah, he doesn't need any sort of evidence. He's just like, I figured it out on my own. I did my homework.
Had no one else figured this out yet? Idiots.
Seriously. I do like the idea. Sorry, I was reading the chat. I like the idea that Bothans have a false sense of security or sense of self-worth because Palpatine basically gave away the plans and they still lost a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Star plans, literally nobody could have done that. Palpatine's just cackling from Biss. hear what he said.
It was just a text message to Boris Failure.
Fly in the big hole. Blow up the shield. Fly in the big hole. You got
Remember
it.
that first time when you had to blow up a small hole? We're gonna leave it unfinished. Fly in the big one this time.
They miss most of the information. They don't get that the friggin' big lasers working. Like, that's probably pretty important.
Yeah, hold on.
Wait a minute.
What did the Bothans do? Did they just find out where it was?
Must have been. I sent. Oh yeah, there's that line from Robot Chicken. Someone quoted. I sent Bothans to get my coffee. All dead. Oh shit! I didn't mean to send you the second Death Star plans. Please delete unless you're into it.
New
Sorry, my
Datapad, who dis?
Death Star plans.
We clearly need to do an episode 6 rewatch, and
yeah, great.
It'll be the next episode of Tapcaf. But
yeah, there is a Tapcaf mentioned in this one. I think just one.
Yeah, I think like page 31. I messaged you as soon as I found it.
Sure. Discord apparently. I mean.
Yeah, but
yeah.
The aerial poof conspiracy. Oh. What was the other thing? There was some. But yeah, so the nothing lore does matters. None of the testimony or anything in the trial matters.
Yep.
The big reveal is supposed to be that Arisi is the actual Imperial agent, because they find out that Tycho's.
I said, but guess what? I read the books before, so kind of a crappy.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, like, that's supposed to be the major point of the book, and then it just sort of happens.
Yeah, I do like the way it happens, though. She's like, thinks she's being all sneaky, and Wedge is like, I don't think so. Like,
but because there's so much focus on this other stuff that doesn't end up mattering, you don't get as much of the Rogue Squadron camaraderie. So the fact that one of them turned out to be the spy, which they do point out before, like, oh, there's the spy within Rogue Squadron, which you're kind of supposed to think is Tycho, but
yeah.
Someone
did say that Lord does get Eela's husband killed, so that's a good point.
But we discussed at the start how that should have been entirely impossible and obvious that he maybe shouldn't be allowed around people.
Also, Derricote's really fat, so
yeah,
big lad. So,
but is there? I guess we should go on to Corrin's Lusankia escapades, and then that'll bring us back to the end. We can tie everything up nicely and
nice little bow.
So, anything stick out to you about Corrin's training?
It's crazy that he finds his grandfather's lightsaber in his medallion and shit. Like, that's what I mean.
Hey, that's the Force. Nija Halcyon was important enough to be in that museum. Back when we didn't really know how many Jedi.
It seems like he died like late Clone Wars, and was probably, family was probably ripe for purge pretty quickly. But this book does kind of mess up the Clone Wars timeline a bit, because it makes it seem like it was about 40 years, which is kind of what everyone thought at this point.
Yeah, well, they make the Clone Wars seem long, and because there was the stuff in the last book about how the Jedi were purged afterwards.
Yeah.
So this museum would have had to be established very quickly and then ruined very quickly.
Yeah.
So what the exact
definitely
thing there is, who knows?
Also, it doesn't seem that hard to break out of Lusankia.
No, you just have to figure out that down is up.
Someone should have got that one before.
Yeah. No one's laid on the floor before and heard boots on the other side.
Yeah, like Derricote was basically out.
Yeah.
So isn't he another case? There's no preamble of him being sent to prison, is there? Isn't he just there?
He just turns out to be there. The big reveal is that Derricote is there, Yando Donna is there.
I think the idea probably is that they didn't want the New Republic to be able to catch Derricote, because they could have made him a big symbol and executed him and stuff.
Yeah.
With the virus not being good enough.
Yeah, it seems like in the middle of the project, trying to use the virus, he would have been nice to have around in some kind of way, but meh. But the Corrin stuff, I think we first see him like 6 chapters in the book because we're all still supposed to believe he's dead. And he's in training missions shooting down uglies, and then he's supposed to kill Rogue Squadron. But we get like 2 cases where he refuses to do it, and where he starts to like piece things together that he's not where he should be. But he still hates Tycho, and it's like his hatred of Tycho that pulls him out. Where he had the thought of like 2 ties, single Tycho.
I do like that part. I mean, I like the hallway too, where they switch gravity.
Yeah, there's Trandoshans
like
everywhere to remind him of his dad too, because Bosk
yes,
his dad.
Of course.
And
got to go first. Of course, it was Bosk. Yeah, there's like 10 bounty hunters in the galaxy, and it's really just Boba Fett and some scrubs. I think Boba Fett also gets his first maybe chronological mention here from our books. Because lore says he wants to hire Boba. He could get a plan to hire Boba. Yeah.
I wonder what Boba Fett's charge for that would be, just to be hanging around killing everyone for you.
Yeah. Well, it'll probably take some time to kill all the people. Like, it's going to take a few days.
But the training missions don't go well. The second time, Corrin just rips the helmet off and tells Asard to basically go fuck herself. Watches Bosk shoot his dad, and then he's tossed in Gen Pop. We get the worst season of Prison Break. The best season of Prison Break.
Yeah, it's not bad. I like it. I like the part where he finds the tablet that's just been turned off, not put on lock.
Yeah. Always turn your devices off, people. Don't just leave it on sleep if it's got sensitive information.
He seems really, really disgusted by going in those cabinets, too. It didn't seem that bad to me.
Well, hiding in filing cabinets is a classic move.
One thing I see you put down is maybe this was one of his first uses of the Force with some sort of mind trick.
Yeah, so when he's hiding in the thing and he's trying to project the thought that, no one would hide in here. You don't have to look, you don't have to look, and it almost works. And then they're like, the troopers are arguing amongst themselves. Because after a while, Warren does get out. He goes and Dericote comes with him.
Yeah.
He finds out that they're on Lusankia, they're upside down, the gravity is doing it, they're on a ship. And
drags Dericote's corpse through the entire thing.
Yeah, that was weird. Where Dericote follows Corrin out, and like almost immediately, he notices him. Dericote tries to attack him, but then Yondu Donna had followed Dericote. They kill Dericote, and then Corrin's got to dispose of the body. So he's like running around with this, dragging the dead overweight man behind him until he finds a trash compactor.
Yeah.
Which... You'd think there'd be more access to garbage chutes.
You would. Based on, Death Star 1.
Yeah, so...
Garbage mashers.
Another prequel, or another OT callback, which you're so fond of.
Yes, very fond of.
Why do garbage cans have to show up in other media?
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic. That takes away from the world building.
Star Wars shouldn't have garbage. I don't watch Star Wars for garbage.
Is there anything else major you want to cover? This is a pretty insubstantial story. I guess
Corrin just gets out. There was that early use of mind trick there that I think is worth bringing up, but then he finds out Tycho is not a sleeper agent by using the datapad. And that's, I guess, what tips him off to Orisi, but got to keep that secret until the actual reveal. Anything else you want to...
I like at the end where it's one of many occasions where Wedge seems to be really interested into Luke. Like, relationship. I don't know. It's like something you see a lot. He's always touching him and like, I don't know.
Isn't this a thing we should do, Luke? Well, Wedge, do or do not.
You blew up the Death Star. It's basically the same thing. It's funny if you imagine the act.
I wasn't sure with Luke at the end there, because they're talking to Borsk, and after Corrin's revealed himself, explained that Tycho wasn't a sleeper agent because he saw it on the datapad. Everyone's
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Tycho gets off. Uh, Gavin and Asir have gotten off a few times earlier, and the uh, the rogues all want to go after Typhera and take out Isard,
Mm.
but Borsk is
Yeah.
saying no, you guys have got to go to Iron Fist, and then they all
I think it's a
resign.
fair call.
So that's when we get the fun Wedge and Luke interactions.
Yeah.
And we get Luke trying to get Corrin to be a Jedi. Luke tells Corrin about his history, which Luke happened to have been looking into, which is convenient. And
So creepy.
does Corrin make the right call here?
No.
He
Also,
should have gone
Luke
to be a
is
Jedi.
telling everybody. He doesn't pull Corrin aside and be like, listen, I know that your family is very important to you, but grandfather's not who you thought it was.
Yeah, it's like going in front of all of his friends and be like, hey, you're adopted.
Or like when he calls out fake Wedge in A New Hope, like Wedge is like some seasoned military. And like, no way we can hit that. And Wedge is like, nonsense. I used to bullseye waff rats in my T16, way smaller. And Wedge is like, screw this
Fuck is
guy.
this guy?
He's a farmer. Like,
And that's what started the lifelong obsession with Luke. Do you think that that's where he got the need to get Luke's approval?
I think so. I mean, he talks about. I think he's kind of reimagined the situation because he talks about how he was just him and Biggs were just flying cover for the farm boy.
Yeah. As soon as Luke said we'd be no good back there, that's when I knew we were going to do no good back there. Just two
That's it for me.
But any thoughts on Corrin decision not to become a Jedi?
All right, sorry. Like obviously he'd be more helped or like get the basics down even. You know, you'd be more useful for Rogue Squadron that way.
But if we look at Luke's track record at this point,
True. And I do like his character arc.
is Corrin going to die if he becomes Luke's apprentice at this point?
Yes.
100%. We've got Dev. Has he killed anyone else that we know of up to this point?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly just Dev.
But we always hear about how he's like researching the Jedi off screen and looking for people. How many corpses are strewn in Luke's wake of people who didn't survive their first day of Jedi training?
It's too like he's not good. He couldn't even keep Marg like going to class and
No.
you know.
Not even Kyle.
True.
Kyle left, Corrin left. Mara didn't really want to do.
Kyle was so pissed off he didn't even show up in the new Jedi Order at all. He was that angry.
Should have for
He'd be
a
so
council
angry
meeting
that
10
he
years
missed
later.
out on a 19-book arc plus short stories, comics.
Jaden shows up later though.
Yeah, true. Oh, don't worry. Kyle gets his grand reintroduction in the Swarm War.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of Vong in the galaxy. Kyle could have been off leading his own.
I think there actually is a short story that covers that. Kyle and Jan.
Corrin's
I think it's
arc
all-
in the Vong War is going to be a fun one too.
Oh yeah, Corrin and Kip are both pretty fun in that.
Okay, so I guess the last thing is just we find out that Mirax wasn't dead, which we've talked about. She was actually on Borleas helping with the cure. But we've basically just been set up for what happens next book. Any final thoughts on the plot here before we get into the
No, it's
last
definitely
segments?
no. It's okay. It was kind of a slog for me to read through this one. I found I've fallen asleep a few times almost.
So I guess that brings us right into the rankings, where
I put this one above True Supercura, but below the other two. I think
I
maybe below True Supercura actually.
think that's where I'd put it. So
Probably my least favorite.
Yeah. So I think that puts us both with Rogue Squadron, then Truce at Bakura. Or no, Rogue Squadron, then Wedge's Gamble, then Truce at Bakura.
Yep.
Then Krytos Trap.
We've agreed on them all so far, I think.
Yeah. So I guess the last thing's there. If there's any questions from the chat?
I'm running a bit of a fever. Do you mind if I head out early and I'm feeling a little ill. I think I'm gonna
All right,
yuck here in
so
a second.
how about if anyone has any questions for this one, just email it to the email address in the description. We got it wrong last time, I think. Tapcaf Transmissions at gmail.com. I'll make sure to edit it into the description afterwards. And we'll deal with that in 2 weeks and give Eckhart a chance to recover here.
All right, see you later, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, may the force be with you. And don't forget, if you enjoy the audio version, you can check out the links in the description. Listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, or Podbean.
All right, bye, everyone.